referring back to the hippies, here's a mural that on Polk and Ellis. You may have seen this one in a parking lot. Yep. It's about 20 feet high, 30 feet across. 50th Summer of Love. So it's celebrating the 50th Summer of Love, or is it? Because love is crossed out and homeless has been written in above by the artist who created this. And here's a hippie girl. She's in blue, looking very Age of Aquarius. That won't mean anything to you, perhaps, but that was a very hippie-ish era phrase, was to be in the age of Aquarius when the world was going to be better, just because we have peace, love, and understanding. If we just love one another, the world will be better. Really? It doesn't turn out that way. There's still homelessness. That's what this mural is declaring. So we have governments in order to make things better than just living by the mantra of peace, love, I just love you and therefore I'll treat you good. Well, again, that doesn't work out. We can see that. So we need laws. But laws themselves are dependent upon revenue. If we don't have a police force that's funded, the police are going to walk off the job. Similarly, the fire department, similarly, the people who are paving the street and maintaining it. It's not going to get maintained if there's not revenue to do so. So we need to talk about taxes. I'm going to draw your attention to the building that looks old-timey. You will see that roof line, that roof design, everywhere in the world, but more than anywhere else, you will see it in France and in Quebec province in Canada because of France, because of the French connection. Why is that? Well, it's for this reason. In the 18th century, France taxed buildings according to the number of floors. Not the size of the building, but the number of floors. And there was a technical detail of the law which specified that any portion of the building touching the roof would be exempt from that numeration. So, in other words, in this case, the top 2 or 3 floors, if there's 3 floors, would not be counted for tax purposes. This roof design emerged to avoid taxes. A fellow named Mansard came up with this roof design, and it's called a mansard roof. So today, people design it for aesthetic as an artistic choice, but originally it was for tax avoidance. At the same time in England, 1696 to 1803, there was a tax on windows. It was later adopted in France as well. But it was meant to be an easy way for the tax man to calculate the tax. How many windows, what's the average size of the windows, and there you have your calculation on tax. The result, though, was this. If you walk around London, you'll see big buildings with little windows. And you can impress whoever you're walking along with by saying, that building went up in about 1750. And you'd be right, because it's during the middle of that tax era. These buildings were constructed with little windows because with a little window you had a little tax. Many windows in London buildings were bricked up, that were larger windows, were bricked up, and they're still bricked up today. No one's bothered to unbrick them. As a matter of fact, the expression in English, daylight robbery, which up until I did the research on this matter, as probably you yourself too, believed was a reference to somebody who breaks into my home during daytime hours to steal something. No, it's a reference to the tax man literally stealing daylight from inside because of the little windows. The little windows are stealing daylight from the inhabitants of the building. One last example of what I'm trying to impress upon you is this. When you think of Amsterdam, what do you think of in terms of the design of buildings? Tall and thin, perhaps? Tall and why? Because in Holland in the past, buildings were not taxed on how high the buildings were, nor how deep the buildings were, only on what the frontage was. The narrower you built your structure, you could have it 1,000,000 miles high, but if it was 2 meters wide, that was your tax, was based on 2 meters. So the point here is that whatever is taxed, there tends to be less of that. There is only one thing in this world which I'm aware of, which, if it is taxed, there's more of that, not less. With everything else, if it is taxed, there tends to be less of that something.